locate information? Are you going to start with that and then go to inferences and then go to analyze and then go to evaluate? Are they going to be kind of all mixed together? Those are instructional decisions that you're going to make. For your specific lesson, you're probably going to look at the benchmarks and think about which of these benchmarks am I really addressing right now. So benchmark number 1 under that standard is identify and analyze the audience, purpose, and message of a persuasive text. Okay, so that gives you a place to start. That gives you like a rung on the ladder, getting to mastery of that standard. So let's start there. What are the skills? What's the concept?
Audience purpose.
Audience purpose and message and the context? Thank you. So, here we have a text. I found this by Googling infographic, which is a great source of reading materials if you want to do that. So let's just look at this and think about some of the things that we want our students to do with this. First of all, is this a persuasive text? Would you say? Why would you say that? What is it trying to persuade you to do? Take certain actions. Thank you. Trying to get you to do something. Who is the audience, do you think? Parents. You guys are so fast. Good. And the purpose is water safety for children. And what's the message or messages? How many messages do you see on there? 3 or 4. One's kind of cut off. Don't be pushy is kind of cut off, but you know, you're always telling kids at the pool, don't push. Somebody's going to get hurt. So these are the things that, who put this out, by the way? YMCA, yes. So do you trust them? Yes. Okay, so there you go with your analyze and evaluate. Who did this? Are they a trustworthy source? Who's their audience? What are they trying to, who are they getting the message to? What's the message? So these are all things that you're doing to support that standard, depending on the level of your students. So that was just an example. The other thing I just wanted to briefly touch on here was depth of knowledge. How many of you are looking at this and going, oh yeah, this looks really familiar? Just a few? You know it. Okay, you got this. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when we talk about analyze and evaluate, that's not the same as recall what was in the text. It's thinking critically about the text. And we can do that pretty much at any level. It's not like you just do recall at level 1 and you don't start analyzing until level 5 or 6. We can do that at any level. So you can see infer is at level what? Level 2. Skills and concepts, good. And summarize, as Anne-Marie said, also at level 2, so that you might ask them to summarize that text. Moving up to level 3, what kind of things could we have our students do? Compare. Revise, okay. Critique. Is this an effective, persuasive piece of text? Would this persuade me to drop my baby in the swimming pool and see if he can swim? Oh, I still have cause and effect at level 2. So compare, we said, assess or analyze, draw conclusions. This is important information, this is not important information. And Oh, I didn't go to level 4, but let's look at level 4 for a minute, because we want to get to level 4. We don't always get to level 4. So what could we do with this that would move to a level 4? They could create their own infographic. Yeah, perfect. They could, say that again. Applying the concepts to their own family, their own situation. Good. Okay, that's just a little preview into actually the classroom activities, which we're not doing right now. We're just unpacking the standards, but just to give you an idea of where it goes. This is where it goes. Okay, so let's do one more together. This one is from what content area? Math. And what sub-area? Financial literacy. And what standard is it? Well, first of all, what page is it on? 31. And it's B. Okay, so you have handout 6, but don't write on it right now. I know you were already there with me. That's all right. Don't write on it yet, because on this one we're going to go to the benchmark level. But let's just do the standard level first. So, I'm just going to read it to you. Develop and use an economic way of thinking and problem solving useful in one's life as a knowledgeable employee, consumer, provider, and investor. A lot there. So, what are the skills? Develop, use. That's it. You saying that's it? Yeah, that's a little confusing, isn't it? But those are the verbs, develop and use. So develop and use what? Oh, my things are backwards there. So an economic way of thinking. Yes, that's what we're developing, and problem solving. And then, I already told you the answer on this one, but what's the context? So there's how many contexts? A lot. 4. Employees, consumer, provider, and investor. Okay, so there's a lot of context here. There isn't always. So that's what that looks like. And this is what your form would look like had you filled it out, but you didn't. But that's what it would look like if you were filling it out on this standard with your teachers. Yes, we know about all that. So what's missing here? A benchmark and an activity. A benchmark and an activity, yes. So, you're looking at page 31. How many benchmarks do you see there under 2A? 8. Yes. So, the activity that you're going to do right now, and you can do this with a partner or by yourself, but I encourage you to do it with somebody so you can talk about it with somebody, is pick one of those benchmarks and put the benchmark into your form and unpack the benchmark. So it won't look like this. You will be unpacking the benchmark, not the standard. Okay? Pick a benchmark. You got 8 to pick from.
I think it'll do okay.
That's the beginning.
No, I can get a lot closer. But when I start going in, I start to have a leverage elevation issue. So I'm trying to figure out the optimum ratio of.
I think I'm going to let George do the editing on this. It's going to be a lot of editing, PowerPoints and pictures. I don't even know. I think
Just walk through, Tracy. We can edit you out if we want to.
How did that go? It made you think. Okay. All right. So how many, I don't know if all your whole table picked the same benchmark, so just raise your hands individually. How many picked number 1? Well, no, you're sprinkled all around. Okay, a number 1 person, what are the skills? Apply and analyze, good. And what are the concepts? Critical thinking, costs and benefits, and is there a context? Personal finance and large debt, right? Scary concepts, large debts. Thank you. How many people picked number 2? Okay. So number 2 was kind of around here. What are the skills? Understand. That's it, right? How to provide basic needs, that's kind of the concept, isn't it? It's like a long phrase. You have to understand that. And the context? Having a budget, living and working within the budget. Pretty basic life skill. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of them. Did you have any specific problems or questions? Several people asked, are these sequential? In other words, do you have to start at 1 and go to 8? What is your opinion about that? No. It's a list of skills and concepts that you have to master in order to be meeting the standard 2-8B. Sometimes they are sequential. In this one, I would say they aren't. So, how many of you did benchmark 7? Wow, you guys really were all over the map. That's great. Okay, so here's how I did benchmark 7. What were the skills? Yes. What are the concepts? Simple interest, compound interest. And what's the context? Yes. Saving, borrowing, lines of credit. I picked that one because it's really clear cut. Yeah. They're not all super clear cut. Okay. Now, never mind, we already did this. We're up to handout 7. Moving right along. So handout 7 has 2 pages because you're going to pick one of these 2 standards, an ESL standard or a math standard, and the standard is already written for you. The content area and the standard, that's all that's written, okay? So the first one is ESL and the second one is the math one. So pick whichever one you like with your partner. Here are the instructions. I'm not going to leave it on this slide because you have the standards in the handout. Choose one. Okay, you need the instructions here, people. Choose one, choose a benchmark, fill out the template. If you have time, and we have time. So you're going to have time to work on an activity. So in this case, go ahead and think about an activity that's going to be what you're going to do in the classroom to teach this benchmark and write it down. We'll get more into activities this afternoon, but here's your first chance to unpack a standard benchmark and create an activity. You have about 15 minutes to do that. Who knows?
Well, you will be in the picture, but we can edit you out if it's...
Too ugly?
And you're one of the people I'm tracking, so...
Oh, okay. Well, that's a plus.
you did a lot of work, you created activities, you unpacked benchmarks, and you had a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to answer one question. You can tell me if you have a better answer than me. But one of the questions was, looking, let's say, at page 37, this is ESL, Content Area 3, Sub-Area 1, Speaking, or Listening, sorry. And then we have a standard that's for the whole skill area, listening. And we have under these benchmarks, I guess we're going to still call them benchmarks, but they're overarching ones for the whole, for everybody. They're not leveled. Like everybody's going to distinguish sounds and intonation patterns of English with increasing ease. So that's what listening, that's part of what listening is. So it's sort of defining what are listening skills. Demonstrating understanding when listening to spoken language. So that could be at any level. It might be at the very beginning level, demonstrating an understanding of yes and no. And at the very higher level, demonstrating understanding of the very complex presentation. So, I didn't talk about that before, so just catching up on that, that there's skill area benchmarks, and then there's levels. So these are the things that everybody's aspiring to do as far as listening. And then here's what the beginning level people need to do. And then, then there's the benchmarks for each level. So your teachers, when you're working with your ESL teachers, they're probably going to be looking at these. Because they probably have an understanding of what listening is and what everyone needs to do. You might want to look at these, the general benchmarks, but when they're figuring out what they're going to do in their classroom, they're going to be looking at these level standards and benchmarks. Okay, that was one question. What else am I forgetting? What questions did you have? There were a lot of specific questions about, is this a concept or a context, or this context came at the beginning of the benchmark, not at the end. So it's not going to be, they're not going to always look exactly the same. They're not going to be totally consistent. But the main thing you want to know is what do my students need to be able to do, and what do they need to be able to understand and explain that they understand. So you got to a lot of great activities, and we have time to share a couple. And I'm going to invite you also with these. If you loved your benchmark and you created a really good activity, take a picture and send it to me. My email's still there. A lot of you did that with the other one. I appreciate that. So I will look at all these and maybe post some. So when you're sending it to me, if you don't want me to post it, you better tell me. Otherwise you might see it on the COP on Monday. Okay, so who would like to share what they did? What pair? Oh, let me say one other thing. Somebody picked up the flash drive. You have it? Are you done with it? Did you give it to somebody at table 14? Thank you. Okay, now, you were going to say? You were going to share?
Okay. ESL.
Okay, wait a minute. We're going to get you a mic.
Okay, Impact ESL, Standard 3.2, Level 3, participating in regional exchange, including communicating meeting needs and through simple conversation. The benchmark I chose was clarify and elaborate on a message when asked by using different terms and providing descriptions or examples. What do students need to be able to do? They need to be able to speak and use. I use that simply. And then, what do students need to know? They need to know the content in which we're taking to do. And then the context, giving advice or instructions, writing and verbal communication. So the classroom activity is a simple journal entry exercise. The prompt would be, if I could give advice or encouragement to the generation called millennials, I would say ellipsis, and then they have terminology. The terminology, advice, encouragement, millennial, education, economics, family, community. And so once they do the journal writing exercise, then the students get up and they actually read exactly what they wrote. For me, ESL is important for you to read exactly what you wrote. A lot of times they'll try to tell you what they wrote, but they need to read exactly what they wrote, and then we have a discussion and see how close we are to one another or what the differences are. And we usually learn a lot. I usually learn a lot from them.
Thank you. Thank you. Very elaborate activity. Who else would like to get lots of adulation from your peers? Never get enough adulation, I agree.
Okay, we chose the exact same benchmark, but I wanted, that's why I spoke up, because it's just a different activity for that, because these are so, there's so much you can do with them. So we chose the activity of comparing messaging and email, so that we discuss the informal and formal protocol, etiquette, conventions of messaging versus email. We can use a Venn. Then an extension would be letting the students role play or giving them scenarios in which they would choose, you know, would you use messaging for this scenario or an email? And what would that look like?
Thank you. Good one. I know there's a lot of people that picked math. Where are you?
Okay, so we picked math. We did benchmark number 6. So benchmark number 6 is, that's on page 27.
Thank you.
And benchmark number 6 is understanding the use of measure and utilize measurement tools such as a tape measure. And so we have what do students need to be able to do? The skills to understand and utilize. What do students need to know? The concepts or content will be the measure and the tools. And we were thinking about the context. It's not really explicit there, but you know, it's implied that it would be everyday life and situations, career or otherwise. So the sample.
That's nice. That was nice. An implied context.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So the sample classroom activity, we kind of named it measuring tools, show and tell. So we came up with this concept where we would introduce the subject by taking a survey of the students, and you know, different ways in their life that they use measuring tools or so forth. Knowing also what their careers are, what hobbies they have, and so forth, and then create a table of tools. So we have some really of their different things that we have, you know, measuring tapes, rulers, cups, Pyrex cups and things, but also other things that they might use depending on what our students' hobbies or whatever, you know, gardening, painting rooms, those kind of things. So we would have appropriate tools laid out there. And then we would have on the overhead scenarios of different things, painting a room, creating a garden, baking something, whatever is appropriate for our particular students. And then we would have them broken up into groups, and then we give each group a scenario, and then ask them to go to the table and pick out the tools that they would be appropriate for doing their activity. And then come back, discuss it with each other, and then present to the whole class the tools that they picked for that scenario and how they would use them. And so this would act as kind of allowing us to see whether they're getting what we've been teaching them about measurement and so forth. It also would bring in their own particular hobbies or activities so they could take it to that 4th level where they're applying it to their own self. And then the extension would be that we would then have them brainstorm situations in their own life or career where they're doing measurement. And hey, is there any tools we left out on the tool table? And either they could bring in tools from home, or they could look up on the computers pictures of those, and then we could have discussions about, you know, oh, I don't know what that is, how do you use that, and so forth. So it could be very
So
interactive.
you focused, thank you. Lesson on measuring tools, and you focused really on the tools and understanding all the different tools and measurements, and presumably they're going to have different units of measurement, so you're going to have to understand teaspoons and tablespoons and cups and quarts, and then also inches and feet and centimeters and meters. Okay, so there's the identify and then also the use, actually use it to measure something. Somebody else did that same one. Somebody else want to share a different activity about the same one? Not really, huh? Anybody else that did math want to share your benchmark? Okay. Thank you.
We did benchmark for identify weight and mass as an attribute that can be measured, list and use appropriate units to solve real-world problems related to weight and mass. So our skill was to identify, use, and list. What the students need to know was weight and mass as an attribute that can be measured, and also we felt like appropriate units was also another concept. Our context was to solve real-world problems related to weight and mass. So our activity was to bring in a scale and have students identify weight and mass, compare actual weight to height and body weight, height and unit, because the problem was to have identify and solve obesity. And that's if the students were willing to weigh this. But if we had a group of women, we could do that. We could do Zumba afterwards.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so that's the process. You did it very successfully. You had a lot of good questions and you mostly answered them for yourselves. Do you have any thoughts or questions about, so now think about going back to your program and doing this with one of your colleagues. Do you feel comfortable with the process? Who said no? No, meaning you need more practice? Okay, well don't worry, you're going to get more practice. But the overall concept of how it works, do you have any questions about that? Where are you going with it? Okay. All right, well, we got another day and a half, so if you, as you have questions, bring them up. And we have the COP, so you know, if it doesn't occur to you today or tomorrow, but we'll continue talking and communicating. So, we had the next activity that we had planned was about giving you some time for planning, for going back to your program. But I'm going to change that. So that was handout 8. So basically, we're not doing this unless we have more time before 12 o'clock. Because since we have John here from TWC, and if I go off the rails, he has the hook and he's going to just take me to the side. But, so you have an implementation plan, an implementation of the standards in your program. You're writing a plan and it's due by the end of this calendar year, I guess, or in January when your second quarter report is due. Okay, so you're going to have an implementation plan. Now, the template for that plan has not been created yet. So I see this as an opportunity for you to think about what should be in that plan. What makes sense to you to have in an implementation plan? And so this is not the implementation. This is the plan for how you're going to implement. This is not, we're going to have all the standards, we're going to have all our curriculum aligned, we're going to have a syllabus for every course by December 31st. That's not what this is. This is, how are we going to do that? Yeah. So, I'm guessing that you've given some thought to this. Some of you have started working on it or thinking about it or at least discussing it. So what would you like to see? If a template came out and it had sections or it had requirements, what requirements make sense to you to have in that implementation plan?
I was just wondering, before we would even want to do the implementation plan, what is the length of the plan? What is it supposed to cover from January 2018 through what dates? Because that would affect how I make my plans.
So you'd like to have the dates on it? The timeline. What do you want? That's my question to you. What do you want? No, but if you were deciding what the timeline was, what would you say?
I were deciding, I would probably do a year and a half to the end of, that would give you 3 basically semesters to put it into effect till every.
So June 2019.
Well, no, you said January 2018, and then, yeah, to June 2019. I think that was reasonable.
Okay, so you would like to have a timeline. You can't hear? Okay, so she was saying she wants to know how long is this, what space of time does this plan cover? And I was asking her, what would you like it, what do you think it should cover? And she said a year and a half, from January to June of the following year, 2019. How does that, what do you think about that? So she said an initial 6-month plan to be revised in the following year. Good idea? Oh, here comes the hook.
Yeah, I'm afraid, I'm going to need to clarify a little bit. We have been talking about this, and the guidance that we have from what we're this is terrible. Okay, let me just put it straight. What my boss has asked us to do with this project is for programs to present an alignment of your instructional materials to the content standards by December 31st. Okay, and so not a plan to align, but alignment. Now that said, we're looking for a soft product, not a hard product. So if you have a general plan to align, if you look at your major instructional materials, figure out what works, what you need to kind of throw out because it's not aligned, and where the gaps are, that would be something that would work. It doesn't have to be detailed, but we don't want to be waiting 18 months to see the alignment implemented. I'm sorry if that puts everybody in a rush, but that's what he's asked us to do. The other thing that you need to, that he has announced, or we have announced at our office, is to be looking for syllabi, especially for your high-level aligned IET programs, as you're developing now. So if you're developing an IET, which an IET is a program that has a training component, which is usually offered by a college or some professional technical skills program, and the E part is the educational program, which is contextualized instruction, teaching things we always teach, AEL stuff that is contextualized to that training. And that you need to be doing now. That is one of our top priorities, to get that alignment going.
I have a question about the syllabus. Sorry, By syllabus, are you asking that we have the standards listed as our objectives? Are you asking for a course schedule in which we're outlining each week or each month and the standards that are being used?
Okay. Yeah, she's asking how specific the syllabus needs to be. Do we need to list the standards and and have a week-by-week program? Eventually, we will. This is something that we are developing too, because we're asking you to do it. So we're kind of fixing the plane as we fly it. But what we're looking at are what do those technical training syllabi look like? You know, if you're working at a technical college and you're working at this, you kind of know what they look like and what they're required to look like. And then we're asking you to list kind of side by side what that contextualized curriculum would look like and what those objectives are. And our standard, you know, our standards would be listed there. Does that help answer the question? More questions? The question is, can we provide an example of what this would look like? Yeah, we can, and we're working with Train PD to develop some training on what this would look like now. So we will be providing some examples there.
What do you expect in the way of syllabus format not IET?
Yeah, the question is, what do you expect? What do we expect in terms of the syllabus that is not IET? And this is part of what this project is about. We don't know exactly what that would look like, and I brought this up to our team, a program specialist at TWC, and say, well, they're going to ask for a template. They want to be told what the deliverable is and what's going to work and what's not. And what they said to me was, well, you know, we're not the content experts. They are. And what we're doing, what this team here, what you who are sitting in this room are, so that's why Marion is asking you to give us some input now. We would, for what we're asking you to do on December 31st, this is broad. We want you to look at the standards. We want you to unpack them the way you're doing now, and to think about how the instructional materials you have will align to them. And maybe what you don't have, what you need to look for, what you need to search for. Oh, okay.
No, look, it's hard because we're working on it for a couple of years now, and I mean, I really felt like I was coming here and someone was going to give me a miracle answer. Y'all don't have them because you're waiting on us to do something. And God's right, it's been expected to start doing that. So I was like, the lessons and the curriculum that we wrote 2 years ago, are taking y'all's content standards and implementing where they fit into the curriculum that we already have.
Yeah, she's saying that they've already been working on this for a couple of years, and I think most of you in the room probably would say similar things. And they're looking at what they have and figuring out how what they have aligns to the content standards. We want you to do that, but we also want, one of the overriding concepts that we have as we've been developing this training is something called backward design. So we don't want you to align necessarily what you have, show how what you have fits with the content standards. We want you to look at the content standards and figure out what you need to do to meet them. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's a waste of time, because if you have things that are working and you've used, and you're seeing where these new standards do align to them, but the important thing to me is to identify gaps. There are going to be maybe some gaps, and so you need to make sure that those gaps, that you create new lessons, units, things like that, so that all of the standards are addressed in what you're using.
So don't be unhappy that it doesn't exist. Be happy because we want to make it what's going to meet the needs of the programs, but the goal is to meet all these standards, that our students in each of these program areas are going to meet these standards, and that implementation plan is going to look at, here's the curriculum we're using right now, we think it addresses 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we need to do more with teamwork. So is it fair to say then, in our implementation plan, here's how we're going to address that between now and whenever? Okay?
I have a question, if I can please ask it. I think the key thing that we're missing is how many standards do you want us to implement in one class? Is it one benchmark? Is it 10 benchmarks? And we really cannot move forward without that piece of information.
You want me to answer that? Okay, so she's saying how many standards in each class and how many benchmarks. I don't think there's an answer to that. It depends on, like for each course, how far does it go? I mean, what level is it? Is it going to meet everything, or is there a level 2, a level 3, a level 4? So for ESL, it's clear, right? For ESL, no, it's not clear. How many of those things are you going to meet in level 2? All of them. All of them. Over a semester. So you're feeling like you can't meet all of those in one semester of a 2-hour class? Listen to your colleagues.
I think what some people are concerned about is everybody here teaches a different number of days a week, a different number of hours a week, a different number of days in a semester. So, for instance, we have classes that are 4 hours a day, 3 days a week, versus 2 days a week, 2.5 hours. And some of us are starting mid-August, going to the end of December, some of us are starting in September, some of us end in late June, some of us end in May. So, and then we have students who don't come every day, or they're at different readiness levels within the class. So how do we address that with one syllabus and say, okay, the expectation is that you meet all of this, when even people within the same organization don't have the same.
How do you decide when a student moves from level 2 to level 3?
Right.
Do you decide? I mean, are students leveled?
No.
Testing, basically.
No.
Not everybody. Progress testing.
So
Identified but not labeled.
to move from a level 2 to a level 3, you're mastering all those things. Maybe it's going to take, if you only come to school once a week, it's going to take longer than if you come every day.
Yeah, we have, we need to try to listen to the discussion that's going on.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, is it a guideline on the syllabus, like this is what's covered in the class, or is it this is what they have to meet in the semester or in the school year?
Okay, she's saying that they need, she's asking for guidelines about what has to be done within the time periods they have, within the limitations of the class schedule, and so on. And, these are things that we're asking you to think about. Not everybody has intensive classes. Some people have sporadic classes. If you have classes that are not intensive, you need to be thinking about the structure. Can you meet standards within that framework? You have to add, use technology or distance learning to intensify. These are all things we want you to think about. That's also why we're asking you for some feedback right now, because we don't want to impose on you limitations that you can't meet. Thanks for the discussion. I'm sorry if we're a little bit mushy in the responses, but we're working this out. And, you know, but if we can think in mind of, you know, the goal to look at your instructional materials, do this gap analysis, figure out how you're going to align standards by the end of the year. That's what we're asking you to do. Not perfect. We'll be looking at them, we'll be critiquing them, and we'll be spending the rest of the year after December to help you work it out. So we're not expecting a final polished product, but we're expecting something on paper that shows that you've been unpacking the standard, that you've been looking at how to implement things. Just a couple more questions.
With the existing curriculum that we have in our program. When you say December, are you looking at each program's particular curriculum used in the classroom and how that aligns to it? And that's what you want right now.
So my question is, for example, I'm going to give you a scenario and you can tell me if I'm on the right track. If we're going to use HEART and AIM and MTA as a portion of our curriculum, then I'm going to make sure that those components are aligned with the content standards, and where there are gaps, I'm going to develop or suggest that we develop modules as it relates to whatever the gap is. Is that what you're asking us for by December?
We use side-by-side handout. So you want to see what ELO goes with that. And then are you other question?
Yeah, well, I think it's two questions. Yeah, she's saying that they are reusing the training materials that we developed for the HEART project and the AIM project, or to put it and the Master Teacher Academy, or to put it another way, the Math Institute and the Reading Institute and the Master Teacher Academy for Math and Reading. Are we going to use those trainings and materials as guidance? And the answer is yes. When we developed those projects for professional development, one of the requirements of those projects was to align to new content standards, which they did. So if you're looking at those support materials, then that's a good way to go.
AIM and HEART has not been released.
She's making the point that AIM and HEART are not released. They are up there for trainers now. I just checked this morning and to be sure that they were up, so they are there, and they'll soon be available to the programs to request for training. That's a promise, right? Yes. Yeah, and they have been aligned. So that's a good strategy to think about how to do this. All right, are we?
Yes, thank you, John. Sorry for putting you on the spot like that. Oh, sorry. Okay, so you have some guidance, right? You're looking at your curriculum. You're looking at the standards. You're trying to match them up. And you're looking for any areas that you aren't really addressing. So there are some new things in here that maybe you aren't really addressing. If you don't do something in ELA specifically about teamwork, maybe that's an area. If you haven't been doing financial literacy, I don't know if you have or not, but in other words, you're going to be looking at the standards and seeing what are you doing, what does your curriculum cover adequately or exceptionally well, and where do you need to do some work. And then a plan for how that work is going to be done. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, but don't publishers generally work real hard to align their published curriculum with standards? I mean, I know that the ventures that we use, the whole, first 2 or 3 pages of the book show this aligns to this content standard. This aligns to the, and they show you which lessons address which content. Now, they're going to be behind because they got to line them up with new content standards, but I mean, the publishers are trying real hard.
The publishers are trying to do it, yes. I'm gonna tell you my personal, this is not a state position, this is just my personal take on that. is that whenever new content standards come out, the publishers come out right away and show you how all their materials are already aligned to it. But so don't just go by that. Look at the actual lessons and think about the standards and think about, is this really doing what I need it to do here?
Then you have to find, like, look for supplemental material. I mean, you just, and we already use quite a bit of supplemental material, so we did say, okay, what supplemental materials do we have? Or are there any places where we don't even have something to supplement? Because, you know, online everything's available. You can.
There's a lot available out there
And
now.
for
Yes.
free, there's a lot available.
She's saying it's going to be a piece of cake, so don't worry. Okay, one more thing and then we're going to move on.
I don't think that because I talk loud. I want to address the lady over there because truly, 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 you hit my heart. Because you were asking all the things that I came here going, oh my God, what are we going to be doing? I know that we're not getting all the answers that we're all looking for immediately, but if your district's been doing things in preparation, you as teachers have probably already been doing 90% of what we're required probably from here. We all just want to know how to put it together, what we're going back home with. And so I'm feeling like some of that's being addressed, but we're giving the hope that we get to include our opinion to help y'all put that together. And I'm getting a big this because that's not what I thought I was going to get here. I thought someone was just going to hand me a template and you're going to go home and this is what you're going to do. And so we're not getting that because you're kind of expecting us to help put that template together. If you're in a district like mine that feels like we've been ahead, there's a little hope that we're doing it right and now we're just needing some guidance. So for the lady over there, I'm just going to say, we have the same thing that you do. Our teachers all start at different times. We're all on different levels. We have the classes that are divided and we have the classes that are multi-dumped in together. How the hell am I going to put all of this together and in a timeline? And I hope that there's not going to be a set timeline, but rather when you start your year and where you go with your students, because we're all districts just like yours. You're not alone. I'm going to hook up with you later.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, John. Sorry for putting you on the hook there. But it was helpful for me to hear your discussion and your concerns and your questions because as we develop the training for November, I have a really good idea what you're looking for now, which I didn't yesterday. Okay. So actually we have 5 minutes, according to my watch. So let's take 5 minutes to go back to handout 8. Handout 8 in your handout. And just think about these things. Now this is on this much smaller scale. This is on a very specific scale of what you're going to do between now and, let's say, September 22nd. You're going to pick a teacher to work with. And we don't know exactly how you're going to pick that teacher yet. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But just think about these questions. Like you just went through this process yourself. Try to answer these questions for yourself about how you're going to do this with 1 or 2 colleagues, or maybe a group of 5, or, that's going to really depend on your program size, the teacher's availability, your ability to reach them. So it's going to be different for everybody. But you're going to do something. You're going to go back and do introducing some teachers to these concepts. So I just want to give you a few minutes right now to think about these questions. How will I prepare to work with fellow teachers on unpacking? How will I engage them in conversation? Like, where would be the best place to start? How will we choose which standard to focus on? What questions do I anticipate? What concerns do you have now? But that's what you're thinking. These are what your concerns are now, probably. So just think about that. How are you going to start that conversation? What questions do you anticipate? Make a couple of notes right now. lunchtime. It's lunchtime. Come back at 1 o'clock, and before you leave, if how many people have a blue dot on their day badge? Where are you guys gonna be? Over there. How many people have an orange dot? Where are you gonna be? Or you're already there. And the yellow dot? You're kicked out. Yes, you're going over there. Okay,